Good morning, everybody. My name's Tommy Johnson. I'm with the Portland Regional Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to IT Basics for Business. This is our newest breakfast seminar series this year, and it provides useful do-it-yourself IT solutions and insightful, actionable tips. I want to thank Uprise Partners for allowing us to bring you this virtual event series for the entire season. I'd like to welcome you all to this fourth and final installment of IT Basics for the calendar year 2022-23. This four-part bi-monthly season-long series has run from December right through to this month today. Now, today's topic, 3 ways the right tech makes teams more productive, is presented by Brian Gagnon, Chief Technology Officer at Uprise Partners. Uprise Partners is a Maine-based technology company building value for small and medium-sized businesses through exceptional IT, software engineering, and marketing. Their vision is for companies of every size in every industry to be able to focus on the work they do to create, innovate, and grow, bolstered by seamlessly functioning systems and applications. Now, like all of the Chamber's signature virtual events, this presentation is free and it will be recorded and made available for free replay on the Chamber's website and YouTube pages. To keep up to date on all the Chamber's news and events, please visit our website, portlandregion.com, and check out our events page and sign up for our weekly newsletter while you're there. Now, before we get to today's presentation, I do want to share that we're proud to be using a newer platform called StreamYard for this event and all of the virtual Chamber events this season. This platform provides many improved production and interaction elements that I think you'll be happy to see if you've not participated before. I'd also like to remind you, if you have questions for our presenter, please type them in the YouTube chat, and they will be relayed to Brian throughout the presentation. And we'll also save some more time at the end for some Q&A. Now, at this point, I'd like to acknowledge our presenting sponsor of IT Basics for Business, Uprise Partners. Since joining the Chamber just a year or two ago, Uprise Partner has been an active participant at many Chamber events and is one of our newest partners at this signature event series level. They'll be the sole sponsor and content facilitator for this season and hopefully for seasons beyond. Now, I'd like to invite Chief Executive Officer Melinda Gagnon to say a few words.
Good morning, Tommy. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for being here and for having us this morning. I just wanted to give a quick overview of Uprise Partners. We specialize in cybersecurity and information technology. So we provide businesses across Maine and across the country with support around all of their technology needs. We're headquartered right here in Maine. Most of our team is here in Maine, but we also have team members across the country to serve our customers nationwide. So very excited to be here. And we're also looking forward to continuing to bring this content. We've had some great feedback and we appreciate everyone who's joined us. We've grown a lot over the years at Uprise and want to also mention we've been fortunate to receive a couple of awards for the last 3 years running. We've been named one of the top 100 security firms in North America and among the top 500 managed service providers in North America. So really proud of our team and really enjoy serving the customers that we have.
Thank you, Melinda. And now I'd like to introduce our presenter for today. With us is Brian Gagnon, a man who is the Chief Technology Officer AT at an IT company, and I'm intimidated every time I go through his credentials, but Brian is a technologist with 25 years of experience building, scaling, and optimizing business ecosystems. He's the CTO of Uprise Partners, and he's served as the head of global systems engineering at HGST Western Digital. He was a global architect at VMware, and he's built and led several tech companies. He specializes in cybersecurity, technology infrastructure design, public, private, and hybrid cloud architecture, data management practices, and data science platforms. He is also a mentor with Techstars and Mass Challenge. With that being said, Brian, take it away.
Man, when you read that, it makes me feel exhausted on a Tuesday here. So thank you, Tommy. Yeah, let's get started. So good morning, everybody. I will admit I am digging deep this morning to find energy, but 10, 15 minutes in, we should be good. I'll drop some jokes at my own peril. So this morning we are going to talk about 3 ways to figure out right tech and how to make your teams more productive, right? And what I would say is when we talk about right tech, there's a lot of people that talk tech, but they're talking about right tech in their perspective, right? They're talking about putting money in their pocket, not putting money in your pocket. So today we're going to talk about, as a business owner, how do we put money in your pocket by making your team and your company more productive? And we're going to use some technology to do that. This isn't going to be all of the answers. This is going to be how to get to the answers. So if you are a tech geek or what have you, you've got the propeller on, you're giving it a spin, you'll probably be bored and you'll probably think I'm a moron. So that's okay, because you're not my focus today. If you're a small business or a business in Maine, let's do this, right? So one of the things I would say, we've kind of gone through this series. We've hit on security, we've hit on resiliency, we've talked about the user experience, and those things are all really important. If you don't have those things, definitely I recommend you start there, right? Because if it's not secure, if it's not resilient, whatever you have for tech is probably going to bite you at some point. If the user experience isn't good, that's a productivity problem all to itself. So having a good plan around the first three, really important. But now let's just imagine a world where you've got those things and now you're starting to feel comfortable. You're starting to say, hey, let's take some chances. Let's take some risks. Let's find some additional productivity, because that's why we actually paid for this stuff in the first place. Well, let's focus on productivity, because now we've got some of those things in place. We can take the time, and we could start to either automate things, set things up in a better way. And we're going to go right back to basics, which is, if you don't have a good process, it doesn't matter what you have for tech, right? I'm a technologist. I would love to sell you technology if you need it, right? But at the end of the day, as a business and a business owner, I focus on the basics, right? Like, if I can't write it down and my team can follow it, it's probably either too complicated or maybe not well documented. Forget the technology. So let's start there, right? And so when we talk about that right technology, I think sometimes this gets lost, right? And what I would say is, when you're thinking about the application of technology, everybody that is joining us today is a business first, and they use technology second to do their business. You're not a technology company, maybe some of you are, but you're not a technology company that is trying to use or build technology and then doing some other business, right? It's business first, then technology helps you do the business. Getting to the right technology, and this is hard. Everybody has different fields of expertise. Yes, they make software that potentially helps you, that's very niche or specialized to your industry, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is the right technology. And what I mean by that is, you might be able to use more simplistic technology that you can more fully utilize, and customize, that gets much more dialed into what you're trying to solve, than going and buying the software package that is incredibly dialed into your industry. It doesn't take very many things in a package like that where it might not fit your needs, and you might have to adapt too many things in your process that makes the value go away. It might be so customized or so dialed in, again, that you have to change too many things. You actually lose productivity because you have to reinvent your whole business process. So let's try to not, do that. Let's come up with, a couple thoughts with how we can get around that. And so when you look at these two statistics, I always love to like sprinkle in some stats so that, we're seeped in reality. 42% of businesses, I think it's higher than that, don't use all the technology that they've purchased, right? That is, as far as I'm concerned, if that happens with, let's say, one of our clients, I'm not doing my job, right? We want you to use all of the things that you've paid for, and you do too. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily, if you know the things that you're using and you can create a value statement off of even a few functions and that works for you, that's fantastic, because then down the road, if you can use more features and functions, you're getting even more value from what you've already purchased. But if you're getting enough and you're just using a few, that's okay, right? This is talking about people that buy something, maybe it's Microsoft Office, just like a little small scratch of it, and that's what you're using. But then you're doing other things that are either highly manual with other software that's really costly, you name it. That's what we're talking about with the 42%, right? When we talk about the 82%, I see this all the time. This is probably the biggest thing where you're looking for a file. It's maybe shared in Teams, SharePoint, Dropbox, Google, you name it, all kinds of different platforms. You're trying to find the right version. You're trying to find, basic things that you would hope to be able to find really easily. And it's not that easy. I'm there sometimes too, right? You do the best to try to organize things. You don't necessarily maybe know all the features of all the technology that you have. And right under your nose, there's version control, right? And both Google and Microsoft Office have version control. It's really easy to go back to history and see what the latest version is, or a back version if you're looking to step back and see what changed because somebody didn't turn on change control. It happens. I do it all the time too. So, and I should know better because I'm in this stuff all the time. So when we think about productivity, right, here's some just basic numbers, right? And you could kind of plug in your numbers based on the size of your team. That 22 minutes, there's a lot of different places that have done studies on this. But if you think about losing 22 minutes a day, or just 20, right? We'll round down. And then you multiply that out by your team. That's actually pretty sizable. When you do it over the week and the month and the year, it's very sizable. And so put some basic numbers in, put your numbers in, come up with it. It doesn't take very long for you to see, right? Boy, there's real money to be had on the table. And is there a way we can capture that? Now, the next piece that I would say to this is you need to be able to quantify that. Obviously, if somebody is trying to sell you some productivity software or what have you, and the software is going to cost you $160,000 a year, or maybe even 80, is it really worth it? And do you want to take the bet that you're going to squeeze out every 22 minute of that every day for every person? Is that a bet you're willing to take? But maybe if it's $30,000 a year, or 20 or 10 software, that might be something that you're willing to try, right? So you do have to quantify it a little bit. And I see this a lot when people talk about automation. Hey, we want to do all these fancy things with automation. How long does it take to build it, right? Or is there already software? How much does that cost? You got to quantify it, because if you're eating up all of your savings with automation, you're just paying somebody else and you might not be having a business advantage, right? So make sure you do that calculation before you get too deep into all the tech. This is pretty easy spreadsheet math and gets you close so that you can have a better conversation about it. And so if you think about functions for technology, I think this is a good way to think about it. Don't think about the whole package. If you're looking at HubSpot, Salesforce, Microsoft Office on the basic side, and you're thinking about, okay, what are all of the features and functions that I get from this? And I want to understand all of them. I want to get the package that has the most. That's okay. But what I would suggest is, briefly glance at those. And what you sort of want to do is figure out the key ones, right? Figure out the ones that you'll be able to kind of create profit and time and space out of, and focus on those ones, because those are the ones that, if you know one of those really well and you fully adopt one of those and leave all the rest to the side, that might be enough for you to pay and basically get that ROI for the whole rest of the package, right? So just think about it a little differently. Think about how you can cost effectively leverage that and dump it into your current process, one little piece at a time, but do it fully and then move to the next thing, right? It's really easy to get excited and try to push all the buttons, pull all the levers when you get something new. I have to resist it myself. I'm a buttons and levers kind of person, where that's fun for me. But the reality is, when we implement things internally, that's what we do, right? We will put a single function in, make sure it works, and then get people using it, write some process, do the whole 9 yards, make sure people understand it. And then once that's good and everybody's comfortable, we're getting those benefits, we just shift to the next function, right? So if we think about kind of key tips on getting to that right technology, there's a couple productivity pieces that, I think these are good guides, right? This is simplistic. We'll get into it a little bit more in depth. But if we look at it and say, what is the complete picture of what you need? That's important. Don't think about it from the technology side. Think about it from your business side. If for instance, you have a bunch of Airbnbs, right? It's easy to see a lot of the stuff out there that is like, hey, automate this, automate that, automate all these things. But if you don't know all of the functions in that business that you need to complete to be successful, you're going to probably miss something. Even if you do it manually, right? You still need to do it. Our businesses are all the same in that sense. There are a ton of functions that have to get done, right? It's sort of like driving a car. If you drive a car and you only look at one gauge, right? And you maybe only look out the front and you're not looking in the side mirrors, you're not looking at the rest of the gauges like, they taught us back in driver's ed. I'm sure they still teach it this way, but I am getting older. So maybe back when the horse and buggy were going, the rules were different. But, they teach you to scan all your gauges. They teach you to look at all of the different functions of the vehicle every so often. If we're not looking at all the different functions of our business, eventually something is going to either run out of gas, the battery light is going to come on, or the engine light is going to come on, and we're going to wonder why something stopped, right? So we've got to think of all those functions, and it's super important before we start applying technology, because you are the expert of your business, right? Even if you bring in somebody that knows a ton about technology, what I would say is a good technologist will tell you, only you know your business. Help me understand the business. I'll help you understand how the technology relates. And that's a really great conversation. When we get to the point of those business requirements, now we could start to map those and get really granular, right? And figure out, okay, this one here actually could make me money, right? And someone like me is going to look at it and say, okay, that makes sense. That's a really hard one though, right? That's going to take a lot of resources to get that one off the ground. Is there one maybe that will produce some additional benefits, but maybe I could tell you that one's easier, right? That's the type of conversation you want to have as you're looking at new technology, not necessarily sticking on the thing that's going to make you most, and it's the biggest mover. Because the biggest mover might be a space shuttle launch, right? And there's a lot of complexity with that, a lot of cost, and you want to be careful with that, right? You don't want to be on a project that takes forever to show any value. You want to get some quick hits, and you want to make sure you moderate that, right? So it's a little bit of a give and take, And lastly, and we'll talk more about this quite a bit, if you don't have good process, if you don't have training for the people that use it and all of that, people, process, and technology, if you don't meet all of those needs, this is going to be a lot harder, and you're not going to get the productivity that you're thinking, right? And so a lot of times, you may put something in place, put some new technology in place, and you say, hey, we're going to just let people use it, see how it all normalizes and what have you. And that's okay. That's you're taking a little bit of a chance though that if you don't provide some guidance maybe in how to use it, you might get to the point where you get stuck down a path where it gets a little weird, right? For us, I'll share, right, what ours was. At the beginning of the pandemic, we implemented Microsoft Teams and moved from Zoom. That part was easy, right? And we're a team full of technologists, and I turned on a whole bunch of things, took Microsoft's word for it that it would just be amazing and everything would just work like a champ. And it did for a good long time. And the great part is everybody adopted the daylights out of it. And then the next thing I know, I happened to look, we were doing some security audits. And now I realize that some of the people on the team created 20, 30, 40 different teams, which created security groups that spanned the whole rest of the organization. And then there were files everywhere. And it's not that anybody meant to do something wrong. They did something great. They actually adopted technology. But the problem was we didn't have a good plan in how we would do that, how we would create a little bit of scarcity so that maybe we didn't create as many groups and teams. And so we got to a point where we were like, okay, now we actually have to sort of come up with a policy or a process so that we make this a little more usable. But doing it after the fact took probably 3 times as long. And it took some adoption. Some people were like, hey, dummy, why'd you let us do this in the first place? And they're right. It was my fault because we didn't actually kind of come up with that process first. So lesson learned. I think it's good to share faults as well as it is all the great stuff. That's a thing, right? So having that process and procedure and training your team and how to leverage the technology is really key, and while it might seem good to just open it up and let people do whatever, sometimes a little restraint with technology isn't a bad thing, right? And so if we dive in a little deeper and really look at, how do you identify your technology needs, right? This is an eye chart that I can't read, actually. I probably should get glasses because I can't see most of this, quite honestly. And now Melinda's going to give me crap, and I'm going to have probably an optometry appointment by the end of today. Not a bad call. But if you think about this, right, and you think about this is a short-term rental example, right? The technology needs are many, right? And so if you think about management, you think about all of the different components and you break it down, now what starts to happen is you list out those functions that you need. You list out maybe some of the features that you would like. Now we could start to build a little bit of a mapping like this, where we start to put in the box all the different technologies that could fill that aspect or that function. To take it the next level deep, this is where we start to take some of this off the table as we get to features versus functions. Features are pieces that help you fill a function. When you start diving in a little deeper, we start taking some of these things back out because they might not be able to do that. They might not be best of breed, or we figure out that this feature is way more important than this one, right? These are natural things. These are the natural selection process. But getting this down and starting to get to this right here is daunting, right? It's important, though, to start to kind of, work with somebody that knows how to find these things. But most importantly, if you don't have the functions of your business well defined, if you don't start to develop what the features are that you would like, it gets really hard, right? Because we're just sort of taking a shot in the dark. And then what happens in technology when you take a shot in the dark and you don't quite know what the needs are fully, you end up buying software that is probably highly nichey. It's developed for your industry. It has every function and feature, but the problem is they have somebody else's business in mind and how they built that, which means 9 times out of 10, you're going to be either paying way too much for features and functions you may never use. You're going to be, using somebody else's process, which means now you're going to have to adapt your business to somebody else's, master plan. And by the way, newsflash, whenever you get into these niche companies for your industry, try to figure out where the people came from that developed it. It's a really important question to ask, right? Hey, when you guys built this, what did you do before that made you say, hey, I wanted to build this? You're going to get a few answers. You're going to get, hey, I was an accountant and I saw the need for this and what have you. Okay, great. So this person's thinking about it from an accounting view. I was a developer and, I heard about this. I saw the hole in the market. And so I went and built this thing. Great. Who did you talk to? Did you talk to and investigate with different companies? These are important things to know because you're going to get what the flavor of the business is. For instance, we used some software early on at Uprise that was, built. It was kind of specialty for some of the things that we do. I didn't ask that question right up front. It was pretty good. It got us going very early on. We have since jettisoned that and moved to something that was correct, but we were moving fast, couldn't spend a ton of time looking at every aspect. And later on, I asked, so this is weird. Some of the stuff doesn't make sense. It doesn't map right. And I don't really want to change our process to meet how you guys built this. Where did the software come from? What did the person that developed this do? Come to find out, it was garage software to manage a garage, like a Jiffy Lube or something like that. And they took that and said, hey, you know what? We could adopt this and adapt this into a managed service provider, and it'll be perfect. Just see. And as they said that, and I really thought about it, I started to see the places where I'm like, okay, so that makes sense why they did it this way, because they have no idea what our industry does, or they tried to adapt it and it kind of came out weird, right? So think about technology in that way. Understand what the provenance is, right? Where did it come from? Why was it built? What have you? I'm going to tell you, the more specialized you get, the more you're going to pay to have to use all of the features, right? If you get something that's a little less specialized that you can use, but gets you down the path, you're going to probably get more value if you can use that. You're going to get more flexibility if you can use that. But you have to know what exactly functions and features you're looking to get out of that. If you don't know those things, it's going to be a challenge. So this is that piece, right? Don't start with the tech, right? A technologist or a tech company or whatever, they are going to sell you what they think you need, right? They're going to hit the functions that they have, not the ones that you need. Start with your functions, start with your features. Almost everybody that, probably joins these calls have all of these things. Customer, that's pretty important to be in business, making sure the communications are strong and that works in a manageable way. Sales and marketing, payments, inventory, all of these functions and features, almost every business I know needs these things. So start with these. This is, a good starter slide, right? But then start to brainstorm with your team. Don't go it alone, right? Get some Post-its on the wall, give everybody a deck of Post-its, and basically say, okay, cool. Here are the high level things. I want everybody to write down, one or two different functions or different features for the function that you need. Sales and marketing. Boy, it'd be nice to see when somebody visits our website. Okay, great. Stick that on the wall. Hey, we need to be able to manage pipeline and see that and have automated reports. Okay, we're going to break that up. Don't be afraid to break things up either, right? That's like 2 or almost 3 Post-its, right? Get it up there, right? If you could break things down, break it down, right? You want to have, stuff that's very easy to pick off, right? And just keep doing that. Go through all of these different things. And before you know it, you're going to have a really good plan of what your business needs and what is important. That's the next thing. After you do this, you stick all your Post-its up on the wall, move them around. Put the ones that everybody agrees on that are really important, put those higher on the list, right? And now you've got sort of your stack ranked features and functions that you need, right? Makes your life a lot easier before we even have a tech conversation. So, by the way, this is a process in software development called Agile. You could use it in everything. We run our whole business off of Agile. It's essentially, to boil it down, how do we get to the highest value thing that we can do with the lowest cost and the quickest time to value? Simply, right? That's how we run our business. We look for the thing. It's not, and that keeps you away from looking for the big shiny object that's going to take way too long, cost way too much, and your ROI becomes tough, right? I've done ERP projects, enterprise resource planning, right? At big places, maybe a university that might be in the state of Maine, right? And one of the challenges was that was a $7 million project when we started, at least an $11 million project over time, because it just kept growing. But it was one of those things that, because it was so expensive, because it was such a long time period, it was really hard to measure the ROI. It was really hard to see all of the value that was getting created. And I think we made consultants a lot of money because the thing just took and just kept growing, and features and functions just kept coming out because maybe it wasn't all super well defined. None of us want to have projects like that, right? And it doesn't take those numbers off if it's $11,000, $7,000, or $700,000. It doesn't matter if it's millions, right? It still costs money, and we still want to get value as quickly as we can. Agile helps with that. So just a tip. I'm going to talk more about that when we pick these things back up in the fall, after I've done some fishing and enjoyed Maine for the summer, and hopefully everybody else has as well. But we will definitely hit that in way more detail, because I think that's a transformative way to think about how you do some of your projects and how you think about technology and really stack ranking things that are important. So now we've done all of our homework up front. We have all of the different functions and features and all of the different parts and pieces of what we need to make great decisioning. So now let's go identify what that right technology is, right? So when we think about it, you want to find the expert, right? And what I mean by that is, that's not the person that is the expert about the technology. You want to find your experts inside of your organization, and it might not always be the person that you think, but you want to find the person that is going to be your key business stakeholder for those different functions, as well as possibly features. Features of software have gotten really complex. Having somebody that really understands it, really immerses, really gets the value, right? That's important. You want to make your expert the person that feels the good or the bad if that piece of technology doesn't go well, right? That stakeholder is going to feel it. If the automation or the improvements that you get out of the software are amazing, you want that person to say, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. This has really made my life so much easier. I can focus on other things. These are things you want to hear, right? That is a huge vote of confidence. If you hear things like, man, this isn't working out, this isn't going as I thought, you name it. That might be a couple things. It may be the technology. It may be maybe a lack of full understanding of what was going to be involved with implementing the technology. It might be a number of things, but that means dig in more, right? Because you probably already purchased it, and you may need to put more rigor to how do we get the value out of it. But if you have a person that is sort of your expert, that's important. It's easy to find the experts at that point, that can help you with the technology side. And getting those people aligned is really key. I could tell you, fact, I've implemented a lot of technology, so has our team. The places where it goes really well are the places where there is a really strong business stakeholder that is not just expecting us to figure out your business sort of all by ourselves. And by that, I mean, hey, you're a manufacturing company, right? Sure, we get that. And we can apply what we've learned from many other manufacturing companies, but it's not your manufacturing company. If you can help us understand the stuff we learned in the first couple steps, we are going to know infinitely better how to help you win, right? We are going to know what your most important things are and help you succeed. If it is sort of laissez-faire and you're like, hey, we're just bringing you in, Brian, to help us do this thing, go do that thing, there is a certain point where, sure, I can probably get us close, but I'm not going to know all the nuances. And I am not, other than I care about our customers, so does everybody on our team, and so does most technology companies. But there is a certain point where that doesn't affect our day to day, right? So getting that person that gets affected day to day on what that automation might look like, what that better process might look like, what that technology may do to transform the business, that person's key, right? That's like the canary in the coal mine that is going to basically, chirp loudly when things are awesome, or unfortunately, take a nap in the bottom of the cage. We don't want that, right? So let's talk a little bit more about the next piece, right? In creating that wish list. It is okay to make a really big wish list of all the things that you'd love to have. But again, back to priority and back to prioritization, there is a point where you want to go through those and really start to stack rank them. Hey, tell you what, the ones in this bottom box, they're nice to have. If we got those, that'd be cool. But these ones up top are transformative. These ones up top get us to money quicker. These ones get us to saving time quicker, right? Just make 2 boxes, right? You don't have to get super complicated. Super high value, super low value. That gives us something to work on, because where are we going to concentrate? We're going to look at the top box, right? So that helps in the process. So bringing these pieces all together, and we've kind of already touched on this, leverage a chief information officer or somebody with those skill sets that are used to not just implementing technology, but also finding that value, right? That's important. They can help you identify the technologies. You don't have to go it alone. In fact, don't go it alone, but figure out all the functions, figure out all the features that are specific to how you run your business. Then, great time to engage. Then work together, bring them up to speed on that. And now you go looking, and that person's going to find and narrow down all of those boxes of technology I showed you 3 or 4 slides back. They're going to help cut that list down pretty heavily. The better you do your homework on your business side, the easier this process is, the less costly it is too. And then most importantly, agile and thinking about this, it's really a negotiation. And you're not negotiating, you shouldn't be negotiating with the CIO type or the architect type. That's not how this should go. It's negotiation against what exists in the market and what brings you the value at a reasonable rate of return, period, right? And you might have to give up some things to get value quicker. And you may have to have a plan where you have to take something off the list and say, you know what, while that would be nice and this would be nice, we can't buy a piece of technology that has all of this because we're sacrificing the other things and it's going to be more costly. We have to make a plan for the next 2 or 3 years where all we're going to do is these 3 things. And we're going to forget about the rest. And when we get to a point, we're going to have planned obsolescence, and we might have to go shopping again and figure out something new when we get there. If we get there, our needs may change in 2 or 3 years. So just a way to think about it. It's a bit of a negotiation with yourself as well as the available technology, right? So good way to think about it. And then when we think about process, this is the part that's often left behind, right? And McKinsey and a number of other big technology and consulting companies came up with this 20, 30 years ago, right? People, process, and technology. You need all three to really have an optimized system, right? And so, as you notice, really key word, unique. Your business is unique, right? There are probably parts of it that are just like somebody else's. But at the end of the day, you need to build this for your business. Getting the process down is really key. Documenting the process, documenting the changes you make. I'm telling you, it takes time. You may feel like you move slower, right? But getting all of the fundamentals down, really, really critical. Good story on this. Michaela Schifrin. Not everybody may know who that is. She is a world-class skier, tons of records, probably, arguably, one of the best skiers of all time. Back when she was a kid, and actually she skied her first, one of her first big races at Sunday River in Bethel, which is kind of cool. But when she was a kid, her parents didn't put her in gates and on a race course. She focused on fundamentals. Fundamentals. All her friends were out skiing, race courses, and all of that stuff. And she focused on all the fundamentals way up until she was 15, 16. She started running some gates. She started doing those things. But again, she was very dialed in on the fundamentals. She wasn't strong as a little kid. She wasn't, had all of the attributes of a really fast ski racer. But what she had was those fundamentals. And she probably looked slower at the time, but she was actually really fast. And now it's arguable she is unbeatable, right? In a lot of cases, because she puts that time in, she focuses on the fundamentals. Fundamentals are slow. Fundamentals don't prove out on a race course where you can see your time and all that stuff. Same thing with IT. Documentation is the thing that gets missed the most. It's the thing that we all should do the most because it actually saves us money and it saves us time from wondering, what the heck are we doing, right? So get your processes listed out of how you're going to use it, document it, and change it frequently as you improve. It's really easy to change stuff frequently as you improve. So the other pieces, technology is not Harry Potter world, right? We're not going to wave a wand and magic happens. I can't help you with that. And if anybody else promises you that, run, right? Run fast. But the reality of it is, if you don't have those clear processes, if you can't develop that, most software doesn't have a place. In fact, there's a lot of stuff you have to configure that is customized to you, regardless if you just pull it off the shelf. It might be how email automation works. And when an email comes in, what queue does it go to? How long does it stay in the queue? All of these types of things. That's where you need to develop a process, because they're not going to do it for you. Or if they do, it's going to be for somebody else's business, and it may or may not hit the mark for your business. So get that stuff down, have a clear plan before you implement it, train people before you turn it on, right? So they have a fighting chance, and then circle back, make sure stuff is clear, make sure stuff is working like you think, make sure you don't need to maybe pivot a little bit. It is okay to roll out software or technology and get to a place where you realize the plan that you made and the process you made maybe it's not totally hitting the mark. It's not doing what you thought. That's okay. You recognized it and it's documented. It's way easier to change like that. So don't be fearful to make the change and, identify it, plan for it, re-educate, and then roll it out and get the benefits. You're already starting to be well down the path of how we can get to things like automation. So this is literally, if you only listen to this and maybe like a couple of the jokes, this is the most important thing, right? If you can't write out your process on a napkin that simply, right? about something that you're thinking, hey, I'd really like to automate this. If you can't do that with pretty solid detail, it's too complicated and you're not ready to automate it. Period. You're going to waste money, time, money, and money, right? And nobody wants to waste money. Take a little more time, and back when we were talking about different features and maybe having to break them up, figure out a way to get a win that's maybe smaller than what you're thinking, right? You don't set a goal before you've done it to run an under 4 hour marathon. That might be a bit big, right? Without then saying, okay, how am I going to get there? We're going to break it down. Every week, I'm going to run 5 days a week, and I'm going to increase that. And then maybe my intermediate goal is to just do that. And after I'm doing that, then I'm going to run a 3 mile, a 5 mile, a 10 mile, and then I'm going to start to measure myself a little different. I'm going to do all those things first before I potentially go and try to run an under 4 hour marathon and get in the Boston Marathon, right? You wouldn't do that probably, unless if you just want to like push it and be okay if you run a 6 hour marathon the first time out. So you wouldn't do this with tech either. So break off bite-sized pieces so that you can get it down on a napkin, and then do that, and do that really well, and then get another napkin. Good news, we're a paper product state. There are plenty of napkins around. Keep writing it down, keep going with it, and I'm telling you, you will start to find success around automation. If you try to automate too much stuff, you're going to spend way too much money. I can tell you right now. And we do automation all the time. I am flat out telling you, we don't want to take your money, and nobody else should, to just automate the world and not do it in a systematic manner. That's not sustainable business. And you really want to think sustainable, breaking stuff down into small pieces, it's going to be sustainable. Hopefully these tips and tricks help you down the path of how you implement new technology and get productivity out of what you implement versus doing it the other way around, implementing it and then trying to find value out of it. So any questions at this point? I'm seeing, oh, hey, Tommy, I see you back now. All right. So a question came in. What if we don't have a CIO on our team, or, a technology strategist to pull this together? There are plenty of us out there, right? All you have to do is ask. This is a pretty cost-effective engagement to do ahead of time. It's not as cost-effective. I'll tell you right now, if it's, hey, Brian, can you come in for a day, help us whiteboard some of this stuff? We're looking for a new technology package, or here are the things that we're looking to solve for. That's easy and pretty cost-effective. If it's, hey, we are now all of a sudden we bought this thing and it's not working like planned, and we need you to come in and figure this out. I could tell you right now, that is days upon weeks upon potentially months, and it's way harder behind the scenes to do that and way more costly. So engage early. There are plenty of people out there. We do this. There's a number of people on our team that are really skilled at talking business and then relating it to technology. There's also others out there, right? Let's see. What else do we have?
Yeah, there was one more question that came through, and we're talking about challenges.
Yep. Okay. What's the biggest challenge you've seen facing teams who have gone through this? I would say probably the biggest challenge, self-included, I am human as well. Just because I live in technology doesn't mean I don't make the same mistakes everybody makes, is doing this every time. It is really easy. Sales and marketing teams at technology companies and what have you are really good at playing to our heartstrings, right? They are really good at luring us in to like, oh, wow, look, they did all the automation for us. All we have to do is put in a credit card, and every month they send us a bill, and it's just going to work like magic. Doesn't work that way. I've gotten not tricked. I've fallen for that numerous times, and I should know better, but I fall for it too. And I have purchased many things, and then you get it, you realize it doesn't quite work like they say, unless if I change my whole process. Example, for a while, I used this technology. I think it was like AI.com or something like that. It was a virtual assistant, and it was pretty cool. I mean, it basically said, "Hey, we will do all of your scheduling. We will do all the stuff." And it's the technologist name was Amy Ingram, right? AI. Thought that was pretty clever. Only took me a month to figure that one out. But when somebody wrote me a message, it would write back in natural language, and it would do all this stuff. Sounded awesome, and it worked pretty well. A lot of people, didn't know Amy was technology. The problem was I had to change my process actually to make it work. And in some places, it just made it way too clunky. And while it saved me time in some cases, other times it went off the reservation, or I had to change my process so much it made me clunky on the back end. That's just an example I have off the top of my head. Another one might be there's a lot of companies that fall for, this is niche to my industry, and therefore this must be the best in class software. We worked with a really large oil company, and that's exactly what they did. They bought this software. It was very expensive. Other problem, when you get really nichey like that with software, they don't have as much competition because not many people dive into that space like that. Means the price is higher. It also means they don't have competition, and they might not be making new functions. They may not be fixing problems. They may not be doing, the best for you because they already have your money, and there's really not much competition. We see that all the time. So be very careful when you go down the route of something that is highly focused on just your industry. That's great, but it also means, like I said before, you're going to be changing a lot of things. This oil company had to change so many things, and they were hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, way down a path, and then figured out, because they didn't do the homework up front, they didn't figure out a lot of the features and functions actually worked the way that they needed, and they're going to have to change too much. So that's some of the bigger challenges that I've seen, and unfortunately, those are costly. They happen. Not everything is perfect either. You got to plan for loss here and there. And sometimes you're going to have to figure out where you cut and run, right? That unfortunately happens. We all can't be 100% when picking technology, but having a good plan and having the stuff documented makes it easier when you get to the point that you're like, nope, we are not getting the value that we thought. Do we have any other questions?
No, I don't see any other questions, but I wanted to pick up on the two examples you gave, and going back to the presentation, the rule of threes, which you did a nice job of explaining in terms of, is this going to fit or not? You said the people, the process, and the technology all need to commingle, and if they don't, you're going to end up just like that oil company. You're going to end up like a lot of people who went in with big expectations, but ultimately ended up costing them quite a lot. And I always love the fact that you bring it back to the bottom line. These are people's businesses, and not everybody's an IT expert. These people who are benefiting from your services or others, they're just running their business, but they want to figure out a way to optimize it. So, to me, the takeaway was, don't get lured into something that sounds great. If it sounds too good, sometimes it might just be that. It might be not. It sounds good on paper, but it's really not as effective as it could be for your business. So, well, listen, Brian. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, momentary productivity is not the same as sustained productivity. Using sort of these guidelines, you're going to find sustained productivity. You may have some loss leaders in there. You may have some things you got to cut. But at the end of the day, if you do this and follow that methodology, you will have sustained productivity that builds over time versus one-hit wonders. Remember Milli Vanilli?
I do
even sing their songs.
I do, unfortunately. I think we're of the same demo. Well, listen, as all of your presentations have been, they could go on for twice the length, and I always learn so much. So thanks for making it easy to understand. Thank you for a great presentation. I want to say thank you to our chamber staff for also helping to produce another successful event. Again, thanks to each of you for attending today and throughout this year. If you're interested in learning more about 3 ways right tech makes teams more productive, be sure to check your email for a follow-up message that's going to have some links to additional resources. Another shout out to our sponsor, Uprise Partners, for their support to the IT Basics for Business series this entire year. We look forward to seeing you again next season in the fall when we hear from Brian and his team on an array of topics to help improve your organization. This is going to be our final episode of this season's IT Basics for Business, but we know that we'll be back again in the fall. So with that, have a wonderful rest of your day, get outside, and enjoy the summer.